This is an AI-generated podcast based on the article Vanessa Pereira, From Corporate Success to Soul Awakening Through Loss and Divine Redirection, written by Apryl. The article link is in the show notes. Hey everyone, welcome back to Kingdom Factor Collective. I'm Apryl, and today I'm sitting down with Vanessa Pereira, who's a self-leadership coach, speaker, and workshop facilitator. Vanessa, your story, it's pretty powerful. You had the six-figure salary, the condo in downtown Toronto, traveling twice a year. From the outside, everything looked perfect, but inside, you were crying out to God most nights. Can you take us back to that moment? What was that like?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's interesting because I was the fun one, the put together one, the one who always gave to others, but inside I was completely shattered. I didn't know what was wrong with me or why I felt so empty. I even spoke to God and said, if you want to take me now, just take me because I'm cool with it. I had suicidal thoughts, but I feared God so much I would never actually do it. But the thoughts were there, wondering how people do it, who would say what at my funeral. Nobody knew what I was going through. That misalignment between my exterior and my internal desperation nearly consumed me.
That's heavy. And I think a lot of high achievers can relate to that gap between what everyone sees and what's actually happening inside. So what changed? I know your father's passing played a huge role. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. 9 years ago, my father, Gabriel Manuel Pereira, took his last breath in front of me after a 2-year cancer battle. I was 32. Something happened in that moment, but I didn't know what it was at the time. A few years later, it became known to me that it was my soul awakening, my first one. The day after his death, I felt a perspective shift immediately, and these big life questions flooded in. What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do for the rest of my life? I've been in corporate for about 10 years by that point, successful by every measure, and suddenly none of it made sense. I thought, there is no way I can do this for another 30 years until retirement. I cannot. So death became this catalyst for awakening. Grief has this way of stripping everything down to what really matters, doesn't it? What did you do with those questions? So here's what happened. 3 months after my father's passing, I took my first solo trip to Costa Rica. I was desperate to escape the weight of loss and all the well-meaning people surrounding me. I was searching for something but didn't know what. And Costa Rica is all nature. God is everywhere there. Get this, our guide's name was Gabriel. How synchronistic that my dad made his first appearance to me in Costa Rica. His first name was Gabriel, though nobody called him that. I don't see anything as coincidence. That trip cracked something open. I began doing small things for myself without guilt or shame, getting my nails done just because, doing things without justifying it. We think these things are so small, but when you do them, they bring up a lot of, I shouldn't do that, or I should give to others and exhaust myself because I'm a giver. You get into this martyr energy.
That martyr energy. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially in Christian circles, they confuse self-sacrifice with holiness, but God was redirecting you. What was he telling you?
He kept whispering, you need to learn how to love yourself first, beyond the surface at a much deeper level. But even with all the podcasts, Joe Dispenza, Marianne Williamson, Eckhart Tolle, I felt stuck. I loved what they were saying and it made me feel less alone, but nothing was actually shifting in my life. I'd feel good in the moment, then go back to my regular routine thinking, why do I feel so dissatisfied even though I have everything? I had everything. I knew I had everything. And that made the depression even more confusing. I prayed to God heavily every night, wanting things to change.
So you're in this place where you're consuming all this spiritual content, but the real shift hadn't happened yet. Then what? I know there was a pivotal moment with a life coach.
Yes. During a walk, I heard a whisper, get a life coach. I didn't even know what a life coach did exactly. I Googled it, got overwhelmed by a billion options, and closed the tab. But God nudged again, louder this time, as he always does. Within days, I was on a discovery call with a coach who didn't have a website, didn't have a big following, but had something my intuition and soul recognized immediately. When she said it's 10K to work with me one-on-one for 6 months, I pulled out my credit card without hesitation. I love that part about 2022 Vanessa, who was not afraid to make bold decisions in the midst of her chaos. I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'm literally in depression right now. I've tried everything else. It's only 3 paychecks, not really a big deal in the grand scheme. $10,000 on a credit card in the middle of depression? That takes
Some serious faith. What happened during that coaching?
I worked with that coach for 18 months in a row. The transformation speaks for itself. It wasn't about tactics or strategies. It was about unlearning shame, guilt, and self-judgment. It was about shifting focus to being over doing. A lot of this came down to self-worth. I was looking for worthiness in everything outside of me. Men who didn't want long-term commitment, bosses who didn't recognize my value, feeling like a nobody in my family. It was the same lesson in different scenarios. Within the first 3 months, miracles started dropping into my reality. My difficult boss got transferred, new opportunities appeared, a different caliber of men started showing up. But more importantly, I started seeing the pattern. God was teaching me to stand on my own.
That pattern recognition, that's huge. Can you unpack that a bit more? What was God showing you?
Sure. God gave me good leaders, so I knew what that experience would feel like, but then they would leave in under a year. I used to get so frustrated thinking I finally got a good one and now you're moving them. Over time, I understood why God did that. He was saying, Vanessa, you're not meant to latch on to anyone. You're attaching your value to whether you have a good leader or not. I'm going to show you how to stand on your own, regardless of who is in your corner or not. You are the leader. You're not going to be at somebody else's table. I'm preparing you to create your own table.
Creating your own table? I love that. So fast forward to 2025. Your word for the year was surrender, and, well, God showed you what that meant, didn't he?
Oh, he absolutely did. Every door I tried to walk through in my corporate life, part-time roles, new projects, all resulted in a firm no. At the same time, my relationship that I thought was headed for marriage ended abruptly from infidelity. The previous version of me would have crumbled into pieces from something like this, something I once thought was my biggest fear. But the 2025 Vanessa saw it clearly. God is removing this man because he's not the one chosen for where I'm headed, and these opportunities in corporate are a no, which means God wants me to be somewhere else. Okay, cool. I don't suppress my emotions anymore. That's a big part of what I work on with clients, to not diminish any feelings like they don't matter, because it does all matter. Go through the process. What you'll notice is that while pain is inevitable, your timeline for suffering actually collapses because of your level of self-trust.
That's so good. So you're collapsing the suffering timeline because you trust God's redirection. And I know friends started dropping away too. How did you process that?
Yeah. Friends I thought would never leave started dropping like flies. It was hurtful and confusing, but once again, I saw the pattern. God was creating space for new people to enter my life, people who can handle my faith, my mission, my full self. I was craving people I could talk to about God openly. I want to talk about it because it's part of my everyday life. I no longer want to keep it private like I used to when I was in corporate. God heard my ask, as he always does, and he so divinely brought them into my life.
So now you're a self-leadership coach, speaker, workshop facilitator. You got the call from God to close the corporate chapter. How do you approach your work now? Because it sounds fundamentally different.
It is. I'm clear on my why and what, but the how I leave to God. My role is to take care of my vessel through movement, being aware of my thoughts, rewriting disempowering beliefs, regulating my emotions, listening to my body for the actions I need to take. My body is the vessel that carries my soul, and God is my soul. This is how we're doing the work, co-creating. I no longer pray to God. I have conversations with God throughout my day. Gratitude isn't a morning routine, it's a 24/7 posture. When I need words for a presentation, I pray, "Thanks for letting your words flow through me, God. Whatever you need the audience to know, give me the words. May your will be done, not mine." Then I drop it, and the words flow effortlessly. Always let God know, "I like this. I want more of this. More, please.
Thank you. You're not chasing clients or forcing outcomes. You're trusting that God has already lined everything up. That's a radical level of faith. What would you say to someone listening who's in that place you were, successful on paper but empty inside?
I would say every time I unlock something in myself, something magical happens. That's God working through me. My story isn't about escaping corporate to find peace. It's about surrendering control to discover the true joy of this life God has blessed us with. It's about learning that God doesn't want us to put him on a pedestal, worshiping from a distance or trying to be a martyr for him. God is calling us to co-create with him, walking side by side, hand in hand. Your breakdowns are your superpower, which allows you to create from a space of expansion, not limitation. Your darkest seasons become the soil for your greatest joy. What's the one thing you've been holding back that God is asking you to leap into? What if this week you finally chose to action God's nudges, right?
That's beautiful. Vanessa, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. I think a lot of people needed to hear this, that it's okay to let God prune away what no longer serves you, even when it's painful. For everyone listening, the full article is in the show notes. Vanessa, where can people find you if they want to connect or learn more about your coaching?
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a gift. People can find all my information through the article link in your show notes. I'm grateful for this conversation.
Thanks again, Vanessa. And to everyone listening, remember, God is inviting you to co-create with him. What's he asking you to surrender? We'll catch you next time on Kingdom Factor Collective.